There's one Caribbean citizenship that is bringing back what I call its almost free citizenship offer, and it's available at a discount. I'm going to give you all the details. So just to quickly recap, we've talked about this a lot on the channel. Citizenship by Investment is a way to fast-track your way to a second citizenship so that you are in control of your financial and personal life. No one government controls you. You have options. And if you don't have citizenship by ancestry, or it takes too long to get, or it's nebulous to get, or you're not sure if you'll be approved, if you don't want to relocate somewhere else, if you don't have other paths to get citizenship, or if you're trying to build a multi-pronged passport portfolio, then Citizenship by Investment fits in very well. The challenge is, unless you want to start spending larger amounts of money, most of the more affordable programs are based on a donation. But there's one program that allows you to bypass the donation and actually get your money back, and now it's at a discount. If it's your first time here, I'm Andrew Henderson, founder of Nomad Capitalist. We're a boutique consulting firm that helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best, having a second citizenship, planning to reduce your taxes, protecting your assets, and living a free life for yourself and your family. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. And we're talking about all these second citizenships every year at our annual event called Nomad Capitalist Live. So, most citizenship in the Caribbean, that's where we're focused today. 5 programs: Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia. Those are the 5. Are going to be donation-based. They have real estate options, St. Kitts and Nevis is being the most flexible. The issue is, even if it's a more flexible program, what's the liquidity on St. Kitts and Nevis? And especially seeing that most people coming there are probably looking for citizenship by investment, I just think you've got a lot fewer options. Nothing wrong with living on St. Kitts and Nevis, and we've helped a couple of people actually relocate to Antigua and to St. Kitts. And they've bought property, or in one case, rented property. If you want a lifestyle purchase, nothing wrong with that. But buying property, even if it's an open market in a Caribbean country, how many islands are there that someone can choose to buy property on, especially when one is being pushed because it has citizenship by investment as an offering? That could always change. Dollar amounts could go up, they could go down, and so that's a challenge. Most of the other real estate investments are buy into my hotel or buy a share of something, and we'll pay you, 2% a year, and in some cases, we're just giving you your own money back. Hey, there's some pretty honest people in the business, but a lot of them they don't even get built in some cases. And so there's all kinds of schemes and scams in that area. Even if it's not a scheme or a scam, it's just generally not a good investment. I mean, investing and just donating $100,000 versus tying up $250,000, and in 5 years you get it back with nothing. And again, the government can change the program. So if you're going to the Caribbean, in my opinion, you want to make a donation. There's one exception, and that's where this quote unquote almost free, my words, not theirs, program comes in. And that's in St. Lucia. St. Lucia was my personal choice for Citizenship by Investment. I've talked about that in a separate episode, why I chose that. Does not mean that you should choose it. Does not mean I would choose it again all these years later, but I'm happy with the decision. And so what they have is they have had a COVID-19 relief bond. They have extended the discount of this thing after every other Caribbean island has stopped extending COVID discounts. And what this allows you to do is, rather than make the $100,000 donation, or if you've got a family, it's more than $100,000, right? You can actually invest in this COVID-19 relief bond. Normally $500,000, now it's down to $250,000. And so you can ostensibly get that money back. It's a non-interest bearing bond, so you're not going to make any interest on that, so there is an opportunity cost. If you think, hey, I can put my money, there's banks in Singapore now, they'll pay you 3% on your US dollars. Hey, I was going to put that $250 in Singapore, that's $7,500 a year. Depending on whether it's 5-6 years, whatever the term is, we'll get to that in a minute. Hey, here's what I'm losing, okay? So you have to consider that. If you're saying, hey, I'm investing in something that's going through the roof, I'm an options trader, I think I've got to play when crypto comes back in 5 years, I've got a business to invest in, obviously the opportunity cost may be much higher. This is why, now that Turkey's Citizenship by Investment program, which is a genuine open market investment in a country with a real economy, $400,000, all right, anyone who has an opportunity cost issue would rather pay $100,000, get the passport that's a better quality passport for most people, because the opportunity cost on remaining $300,000, even though they could sell the property in Turkey for $400,000 or $375,000 or $425,000 or whatever, if they buy it correctly. Hey, you know what? I don't want to tie up my money for 3 years and then have to sell it. It's just easier to write the check. Okay. So you've got to consider the opportunity cost of the delta between $100 for St. Lucia and $250. But let me run you through the numbers. You've got until December 31st, 2022 to do this. 5-year holding bond, $250,000. If it's just you, $250,000, 5 years you're tied in, you don't make any interest. If you have a qualifying dependent, they bump it up to 6 years. So you and a spouse, they bump it up. Now, it's more than $100,000 for you and a spouse, okay? If you have up to a family of 4, Antigua is the cheapest. It's certainly not the most efficient, but Antigua is the cheapest, so you wouldn't go to St. Lucia if the goal was cutting the cost down to the minimum unless you're single. So if you have 2, you have a better deal, $250 versus another program's cheapest, $130, right? So now you've got a $120,000 delta, but you've got to hold that interest-free for 6 years. So even if you were just planning on keeping that money in a term deposit somewhere, what is that going to be? $45,000 in opportunity cost, and probably you could do better on that. If you have up to 4 qualifying dependents, so it's you, a spouse, several kids, $250, they put it at 7 years, or 305 years. And then if you have more people than that, then you have to bump it up basically 15 grand at a time. And so you need to figure out for your particular situation. This is what we help people figure out all the time, which is the best option. And we ask questions like, let's talk about opportunity cost. Where are you putting your money? Right? Certainly, this could be a diversification option, not interest bearing, so perhaps not a very good one, but this could be a diversification option where you could say, hey, I don't want to keep all my money in the United States. If you're a bond investor, maybe you want to put it there. We've had a few clients over the years where they're like, hey, Angela, I sit on $5 million in the bank at all times. That's my liquidity. I just like to see $5 million in my bank. Okay, you're probably not going to miss 250 or 300. You're not making much in the bank these days. And so you just move it down there and you save yourself the donation. Now, a couple things you want to be aware of. Number one, I saw some ad, 0 processing fees. And for a minute I thought, did I go crazy? Like, is it just a totally free deal? Put your money in bonds and then just okay, you have to pay you've got to pay the due diligence, you've got to pay the agents, you've got to pay the people to do the work, you've got to collect the documents. There are some decent costs to Citizenship by Investment, but there's cost to any residence or citizenship program. You need documents, you need lawyers, you need, we help people do this. I said, are there no fees? No. That is the trick these people use. So be careful. 0 processing fees. Yeah, but there's a $30,000 admin fee upon approval. So you're paying that admin fee. So there is a cost, okay? And that is because rather than getting a donation, they're just getting bonds. Sure, they're happy to take your money for bonds, and they're not paying you interest, so they're saving something there. But they still have the Citizenship by Investment unit. They need to get paid, and so it's like, all right, pay us the $30,000. And that helps them run the unit and do all the things that they need to do. So you can look at it as 30 sunk, and let's say you've got a family of 5, 250 tied up for 7 years, all right? And so again, what would you do with that 250 over the course of the next 7 years? Again, what's the next cheapest program going to be? You're going to save about $100,000 over the donation if you took the cheapest option. Maybe you happen to prefer St. Lucia, but if you're just agnostic to which country you're going to the Caribbean, you can save about $100,000 in cash minus the 30. So the question is it worth saving, let's say in this example, $70,000 to tie up $250 for 7 years? Or is it worth saving $150,000 if I'm single to tie up, $120,000, right? $250 minus 100, difference in the offering, $150 minus the 30, $120. Is it worth saving $120 if I'm single to tie up $250 for 5 years? You've got to ask yourself that question. The other cost, the due diligence, all that's going to be the same basically. So don't fall for the 0 processing fees thing. There are some other fees. So kind of like a donation, the admin fee is due on approval. So you don't need that money now, but you need to show that you have it. I also see people promoting that you can get this done in 90 days. Approvals might take 3 to 4 months, maybe sometimes 5. If you're from the West, it's probably going to be a little bit faster than if you're from an emerging country that requires more due diligence. But you also have to collect your documents in there. And so I think the idea that someone thinks that they're going to start today and get citizenship in 3 months and they're not going to pay any additional fees, they're just going to send their money down there, that's nonsense. Okay? There are, again, due diligence and admin and all those kinds of fees. There's this approval fee, basically. But if you still do that math, you can look at the fact that Citizenship by Investment in the Caribbean gives you citizenship in a country that's not going to bother you. They're not going to chase you around the world. They have pretty decent visa-free travel all over the world. You can go to the UK, you can go to Ireland, you can go to Europe, you can go to Southeast Asia, you can go to a good chunk of what St. Lucia is good for is Central America, for example. So if that's your part of the world and you don't want to get a visa for those countries, then you're good, right? St. Lucia is one of the weaker passports of the 5 in terms of visa-free travel. For the average person, that may not matter, right? If you're going to keep your US or other passport, that may not matter. If you're like me and you had other passports that fill in some of the holes, that may not matter, right? Dominica for the same price point as St. Lucia with the donation. You can go to Russia and China. A lot of people don't care about that, especially today, right? And so you might like St. Lucia better. So I'm never here to tell you what the best program is, because the best program is tailored to you, and we do that we find out by asking you a whole bunch of questions and prescribing it. By the way, the best citizenship for you may not be a citizenship by investment at all. It may be one that you don't realize you're entitled to, and you could get that instead. But if you want to not make a donation and get Caribbean citizenship without the obligation to be holding real estate you've got to dump, you just buy bonds, you get rid of them in 5, 6, 7 years. This could be an option to consider for folks with higher liquidity, and it ends December 31st, 2022.